Howdy, everybody. This is Trey Honeycutt. I am your guest host today on the SolidiTEA podcast. So I'm excited to be on here, and I'm even more excited to have who I consider the best guest of all time, Rami Hamadi.
Appreciate it, Trey. Thank you for coming on today.
You are welcome. This is going to be a lot of fun. And for those that don't know, I know there's a lot of viewers of this podcast, and I asked you before, I'm like, how many times you told your story, Rami? And you're like, a few times. But for those that don't know, how did you get started in life insurance? Where'd you come from? How did you find this, and what was attractive about it to you?
So in the very beginning, guys, when I joined the business, Trey, I was working full-time in the hospital, and I was actually going through medical school. I was going to become a doctor and just, go through the whole medical field. And at that point in time, I've known Marisa and Christina for quite some time. And at that point in time, guys, I reconnected with them, and I saw on Instagram, like most people do, all the posts. Back then, we could, write how much we issued paid, and I was seeing all the numbers. I was tracking, seeing every single post, and I was getting intrigued. I was curious. I already knew I liked helping people on the medical side, more on the health side. However, this way I was thinking, you know what, I can actually help people financially. So what I decided to do was I said, hey, you know what, let me talk to Marisa and see what's this really about. So I spoke with her. She's like, I'm like, what do you do? She's like, I own my own insurance agency. At that point, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how do you own your own business? I'm like, can you explain that to me? She's like, no, yeah, I own my insurance business. She went through the details. And at first, I was taken back a little bit. I didn't know if I could believe it. I didn't know if it was a pyramid scheme, Ponzi, you the whole nine, MLM. Right. And at that point in time, I was like, you know what, let's continue talking. We reconnected, and then as you know, me and Marisa started dating. And then at that point, I still did not join. I still was watching Christina and Marisa work and seeing all the income and all the families they're helping and the impact they're making on other agents' lives. And at that point, I said, you know what, it can't be fake. I said, at this point in time, one, I know they will not lead me to any type of thing that's not going to help benefit my family or many other families. So at that point in time, I said, Trey, you know what, let me try to come in here for part-time. I decided to do part-time, and the first month I helped 17 families on a part-time basis. And at that point in time, I never looked back. And that's how I got into the insurance industry. No sales experience, nothing whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I love that, because that's exactly how I felt when I was introduced to it. Is I was like, well, is it an MLM thing? And the way it was explained to me is no, because you're not trying to sell your friends and family. Exactly. You have leads of people who are looking for the insurance. And it's always been this way, and it's basically based on supply and demand, but there's always more leads than there are people to help with the insurance. So as we got better at helping leads with insurance, there were more people that came out with ways to get us leads to sell insurance, and it's a beautiful cycle. So, and man, I sure am glad you got started with this and part-time. Never looked back. That's phenomenal. What's your best month helping families so far?
So my best month would be around 71 families.
In a month?
In a month, yes.
Wow. How many hours a week do you work to do that?
Well, so I'll be very direct. I don't really count my hours, but I'm working 24/7. I follow the system. I dial Monday until I book my 16 appointments. I'm in home. So basically, when I'm dialing a Monday for Tuesday, Wednesday, I want to make sure I have 16 appointments like most full-time agents. Thursday, the same thing. Rinse, wash, repeat. I would assume I work probably between 40, 50 hours a week if you count everything out, but I don't really count them. I'm always working. So I'm always on the clock. But it's really, guys, to put it bluntly, I'm dialing for probably about 4 to 6 hours a day on that Monday and Thursday. I'm in the field between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., right? And at that, I come back home and relax, and I'm still helping around between 40 and 50 families a month. So if you compare that to the work I'll be doing in the hospital, it's much different. I would not be reaping this kind of reward. I'll be putting probably double the hours to not even get 25% of the income I'm working now. So it really helped change my life for the future, Trey. Seriously, it was a really good opportunity. It's a great opportunity, to be fair.
Well, that perspective is everything. There are people that work 2-3 jobs that make half of what you could make in a really bad week, in insurance. And so once you figure that out, it becomes really addicting. And it's not, we're not roofing houses. We're not like digging ditches or building roads. We're just calling people up on the phone that we're interested in life insurance and helping them get life insurance. So that's a great perspective to have. It's definitely not like being on call at the hospital.
No, not at all.
As an ER doc, 24 hours a day.
Exactly. Always coming in and dealing with a certain patient. And as well, when you're in this business, you get to meet different types of people. Same thing in the hospital. You meet all walks of life. But in the hospital, they're coming, with problems to you, and you have to kind of really solve those. Whereas you get into the home, you have no idea what you're walking into. You may walk into a family that needs the insurance. You may walk into a family that wants some retirement. there's many different doors and avenues that will open up when you're meeting those families. And that's what truly intrigued me a lot to Family First Life as well, is that it's not only one lane, right? That you can come into business, and then what I do primarily, I focus on final expense and mortgage protection. At the same time, if I wanted to, I could focus on helping people retire. I could focus on future income planning. And that really appealed to me in this business, because a lot of other agencies or other groups out there, you only are going to be dealing with final expense insurance or basic life insurance. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you're meeting certain quotas and you're, paying a certain volume. And over here, we have none of that, guys. So the best part about that was it was pure freedom to me, Trey. It honestly was. The freedom is really what attracted me the most to this business as well.
Yeah. And that is true. There's a lot of choices. People say, well, he works 24/7. He always is. Yeah, but you have the freedom to make choices of what you're going to do with your time and when. And that flexibility is everything.
It really is.
Like I could go to my son's baseball game and then, still answer a call or two and not totally have my life ruined.
Yeah, I agree.
And have an incredible lifestyle, but be with my family. It's actually quite liberating, because I don't know anything else like it.
I agree. And like you said, Trey, I can basically, go in the field, help a few families, and I can take a break. I can go eat lunch with my family. I can go do whatever I want to do for pleasure, leniency, and go right back into work and continue on working. And there's no other job out there where you can tell your employer, hey, I'm going to take a couple hours off right now and, drop everything what I'm doing. It's not working, go play around a bit and come back to work. They're going to tell you, no, you're fired. Here, right. You can do whatever you want. Like you said, you have that flexibility, that leniency to do what you want to do. And as long as you're working, guys, and staying consistent and always making sure you're out there to protect the family, you're going to have a great life here. Truly. It's just all about caring for that family. And again, that's why I think another point where I really enjoy this business, Trey, is because I really enjoy helping people. I truly feel like that I do have a servant's heart, in the sense that in the hospital, I can help you health. Right? You come in the hospital, I can tell you a differential diagnosis, treatment plans, give you medications, the whole nine. Whereas this way, I know that if I'm sitting down with you and you're in a family, and God forbid the worst thing ever happens to you and your family, I know that you will be protected no matter what financially. Same thing with your family. That goes a long way for me. Me knowing that I can actually protect somebody's legacy in the generation, because in the hospital, I can tell you to do something, may not do it, right? At the end of the day here, though, it doesn't matter what they say, right? It matters about, do you have that problem? Is there a solution for it? At that point, 1 + 1 = 2, and you just basically see if they can qualify.
Well, what about the learning curve? I mean, if people are watching this and they're like, that sounds too good to be true, Rami. You help 17 families the first month part-time. Maybe that's not typical, maybe it is, but like, what does the learning curve look like for a new person?
So the learning curve, guys, is always going to be how much sweat equity that person is willing to put into the business. Typically, I tell all my new agents, give it 90 days. I say, give it your all for 90 days. And if you do that, there's no way you cannot be successful as long as you're plugging in, as long as you're reaching up to your upline, as long as you're constantly watching the videos, going on the Facebook trainings, and you're always dialing on Monday and Thursday, whatever your dial day is. If you're Telesales or Zoom, you're dialing all the time. As long as you're constantly putting in that activity and doing an income-producing activity or income-producing ability, I don't see the learning curve being longer than 90 days, guys. You may come in like I did and have a very short learning curve. It may be 5 days. It may be a week. Everybody's different, but the average learning curve to me, give it all for 3 months. Mm-hmm. After 3 months, everybody pretty much figures this out, guys, because we're all going to pass away. And with that being said, Trey, it's basically, do you care enough to tell the family to their face, hey, when you die, what does it look like for you guys? Have you talked about that yet? What do you have in place that's going to prevent that from happening? And when you're doing that, you're going to see that there really may not even be a learning curve at that point in time. It's just about basically putting your boots on the ground and move fast and break things. Is basically what Maurice always told me, and I go by that. So basically, guys, just get in there, get working, and like I said, the learning curve would be around 90 days, but it may be even 1 day. It could be shorter. It's all about how much work you're actually willing to put into the activity.
Mm-hmm. And you've always stuck with the in-home model.
I have.
Predominantly.
Correct.
You do some stuff on the phone, but not a whole lot.
A little bit, every here or there, but primarily in-home.
Why did you choose to stick to the in-home model?
I personally like in-home, Trey. I like meeting people face-to-face. It's what I'm used to. And my personality, I'm very direct when I speak to people, especially in regards to the insurance. And I know over the phone, my tonality at times, it may not be where it needs to be in order to continue a full telesale model. But personally, I like driving around. I like meeting people. And to me, when you're dealing with life insurance, guys, you want to remember that you're giving somebody's children the ability to cover their final expenses, to pay their college tuition, cover their debt. Some families, they want to see somebody in person. They want to make sure they can meet you. It's more personal. They understand you. They feel safe. You can definitely do it over the phone. As Trey knows, he has tons of groups killing it over the phone and doing it virtually. And I've done a great sales on virtually as well, but I like the in-home because I like meeting people. And for me, it shortened that learning curve per se, right? It made it easier for me to kind of mess up and break things. Whereas on the phone or via Zoom, they can click. They can hang up the phone or shut the Zoom. Whereas in the home, if I messed up, I can kind of retract. I can go back a little bit, back step. I can ask the question again. I can rephrase it. I can tell them, hey, I'm sorry I said it like that. I'm going to, tell you how I really feel. And that kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think the ability to make changes quickly is really important. Like I talk to people that are, they've been trying telesales for 90 days. It's not working. I'm like, well, stop doing that and just go see folks.
Facts.
And regroup and learn from that experience and then try again later. Like too many people have this all or nothing mentality. And then when it doesn't go the way they think it should, they're not willing to take a step back and refocus. I can tell you in-home sales, doing it that way, it's a lot more proactive of an approach because there's more stuff you can control. Yep. So there's less variables and less things you have to account for out of your control.
I agree.
So that's what I like about it too. I think everybody starting out, if it's possible, go see Bob and Mary.
In-home, yeah. Your first 100 home guys. I recommend to all my new agents, your first 100 homes should be in-home guys, face-to-face. It doesn't matter if you're scared to drive, if you want to do remote. We're not telling you cannot do remote. But if you go see those families in person for your first 100 homes, like Trey said, that learning curve is going to be expedited so fast, and it's going to be so crucial to your success here in this business that then you can go on the phones. You can translate it to Zoom. You will understand the word tracks, how to say it, what to ask, and you're going to actually understand the needs of the client. It's not just about going in there and quoting them insurance and showing them a price and saying, this is term, it expires, whole life lasts forever, here's the cost. It's not what it's about, guys. It's about what can the product actually do for the family. We have equity rescue, income replacement. There's so many things that if you look at a traditional mindset, you wouldn't think that a whole life product can protect a mortgage and amount of $1 million. It can. It's about the monthly payments. What does that $20,000 product do for the family? It gives the wife monthly payments to avoid foreclosure. She's allowed to, pay the bank at on her own pace, make sure she gets everything in order, buries her husband or whatever the case may be, and sells the home or refinances it. But if you go in there with, all right, do you need this one or two products and not understand what the client truly needs, you're not going to really help them. And being in the home, it helps understand what they truly need. Because over the phone, they may just tell you, I want the full thing, I want $1 million. And it's kind of hard to build need when you're just doing that right of a first agent, day one, new experience, no sales experience whatsoever. If you come with experience, it's a different story. But as a new agent, you want to make sure you go in the home, guys. And at least you're putting your boots on the ground and moving fast and breaking things, as I mentioned.
How many families did you help the first full year?
My first full year, so I was part-time and it wasn't a full for a year. It was basically only 6 months. It was between July 17th all the way until January, and it was 243 families, I believe.
And then the next year?
And next year was 560 families.
All in home?
All in home.
Okay, so that's a lot of families helped. So it's fair to say that if you were to transition to telesales now, you have an understanding of who our clients are.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest mystery to it. Like if I were just start out on the phone and I talk to Bob and Mary, I haven't met enough Bob and Marys to really understand who Bob and Mary is,
Yes.
So I don't have the same posture or ability to communicate because you're doing it blind because you've never actually been in these people's houses. And a good litmus test, this is when I was building, and I'm still building obviously, but in the heart of it, the litmus test I would use is like, what are people not willing to do? And I feel like a lot of people are attracted to telesales because they think it's easier.
Yeah.
Or they have this pious mentality like, well, I don't want to go to people's houses. It might be dirty. Or and that's not the right person for us to be recruiting. Like we're looking for people with a servant's heart who are willing to do whatever it takes to help other families and help their own family.
Exactly.
Not people with a list of excuses of things they won't do. Like I used to recruit people and I would tell them, if you drive your car for 4 hours straight, will it explode? And if they say no, then I'm like, okay, are you opposed to driving it for 4 hours straight? Because a lot of people will get started with this and they won't drive their car an hour. I don't know, an hour is a far drive. Like I'm from Southern California. I can't even,
oh boy,
it's an hour in traffic to grocery shop.
Exactly. Anywhere.
So I didn't have a list when I started of things that I was unwilling to do. I was willing to do whatever it took in order to get the job done and in order to actually help the people that were asking us for help. And there's a big contrast in the mentality of that way of thinking and the person that just comes and finds this and goes, oh, I can work from home in my pajamas, you end up recruiting a lot of the wrong people.
I agree.
That's what I've noticed. And there are people that do phenomenally well just recruiting to the telesales model, but I think they're really structured and they're really good at like sniffing out the BS. Like,
Yes.
Are you really willing to do the work, or do you just think this is an easier way?
Exactly.
You know?
I agree.
So tell us about some of the major challenges you had.
So some of the major challenges would be transitioning from working a W-2 job to a 1099 position. Because I never worked 1099 position my whole life. I was always a W-2 position. I was either working, for in a restaurant or any hospitality, things of that nature. So becoming 1099, one of the hardest things for me was understanding you control your income, you control your schedule, and you control your future, which means everyone controls their own future. But when you're working for somebody else and you're working in that job, there's certain stipulations, right? There's certain criteria, you have to prerequisites you have to meet to get further on in life. Here, as Trey said, it's about, are you willing to go all in? Can you do whatever it takes, right? If you do whatever it takes, you're going to reap that reward. So in the very beginning, I had to kind of adapt my mentality to understand, all right, you're counting on yourself here. It's no longer based on the employer. It's no longer based on what your day-to-day task is. Here, it's do whatever it takes, to get done. And in the very beginning, I had a tough time, just adapting that philosophy. I get a little bit lazy at times in the beginning, so I would go in the field a little bit part-time, make some money, say, okay, you know what, I made as much as I would in a month in 1 week. The next week, I would still work, but I wouldn't work as hard. But I learned very quickly that, hey, there's chargeback in the business, right? There's other factors that go in. There's bills. There's still leads. There's expenses. So I soon realized that, hey, you know what? You have to really monitor everything, and you have to always work the same exact amount of activity no matter what. Whether I issue 40 families in 1 week, whether I issue 4 families within a month. It doesn't matter. My activity has to maintain the same. So that was one of the biggest things to transition into. Secondly, it would be mainly just getting used to talking on the phones, guys. 99% of this business is the phones. And I talk very fast. I'm sure a lot of you on these YouTube videos can understand that I do mumble at times. I speak very fast. It's within my nature. And I know sometimes to slow down and articulate. But with that being said, I had to understand that when I'm talking to somebody over the phone, I cannot be that fast. I have to really be conscious and aware that, Rami, slow down your tone, articulate, clarify, make sure they understand what you're calling about and what you're doing. Because in the very beginning, I would just rush through the script and I would book my appointments, but I wasn't being as efficient. I would still have my 15 to 18 appointments, but half would no-show, half would tell me, all right, what was this about again? And I slowly started to realize, all right, you're not putting as much time and effort into the phones. So the phones was probably one of my hardest challenges. But guys, as long as you continue to dial and you continue to put in the activity on the phones, that learning curve was pretty quick. It's probably about a couple weeks. That's it. Because muscle memory, it's like shooting a basketball. You shoot a basketball over and over again so many different times, automatically you're going to know how to shoot it. Your muscle memory is going to understand how to flick the wrist, how it rolls off your fingers. The same when you're dialing a lead. You dial a lead so many times, you're going to understand how to talk to that family. Same thing like what Trey just mentioned. When Trey said you haven't met those Bob and Marys to understand what to say to them. Same thing over the phone. If you haven't dialed 100 leads or 1,000 leads, you're not going to know what to say to every single lead. Now, after you continuously dial, put the activity, you understand what to say. And those are my two hardest transitions, basically W-2 to 1099 and mastering the phones.
Yeah. And I think stamina is a big part of the business. Over time, as you do this, what's hard to do now becomes hard not to do. It becomes a lot easier. It does. Like people are like, man, all that time on the phone and all this time, it sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. But once you get into the swing of it, it doesn't feel like a lot of work, right?
No, not at all.
It's like all of a sudden you have all this extra time and you're like, where'd that come from?
Exactly. This morning, I basically just had my full schedule booked within 2 hours. So right now it's like 10, 11. I can literally, my schedule is booked. So basically, it could take all day, but guys, it doesn't take all day. As long as you're putting in that work, then I have that free time, like Trey's mentioning, to do what I please. You can now obviously allocate it to the business and make sure you're being productive. But let's say you weren't building, you're just producing for yourself and your family. This time is whatever you want to do. You booked your schedule. Now that's it. Now it's like your employer gave you a half day. They said, here's your earn time. In the hospital, we have something called earn time, which means if there's so many nurses and doctors on shift, they don't need all the help. They would tell X, Y, and Z people, hey, you guys can kind of leave and you still get paid. It's the same essence. I booked my appointment, which means I'm going to get paid. I have the full day ahead of me. So now I have a day off.
I love that. That's great. Earn time. That sounds good.
Earn time. ET.
Well, it's interesting too, because people are listening to that. They're like, he dialed for 2 hours and booked his whole schedule. It doesn't always happen that way. Occasionally, even after you get really good at it, you'll have a day where it still takes you 9 hours. And that's just a test to see if you really still want it or not.
Exactly.
It doesn't happen all the time. But then there's people that I talk to that they're like, Trey, you don't understand. Like, I dialed for 14 hours and I only booked 3. And what I'm saying to myself is, you didn't dial for 14 hours.
No way.
Like, you could literally, if you actually really dialed for 14 hours, you could take the oldest, most uninterested lead of all time and just be like, hey, Rami, I know you're not interested in life insurance, but I was wondering if I could come over tomorrow at 3.
Yeah, I'm home.
And they'll say yes. You'll get at least 3 or 4 of those. I'm not saying that should be your phone script, but if you were really dialing for 14 hours, there's no way that you wouldn't have those numbers. And so I think what happens a lot is people sit there for 14 hours and think about how bad it is. They actually don't call anybody.
Exactly.
They don't have enough leads to start with. You know, they're dialing all the same people that didn't answer last week. And they make these permanent decisions off these temporary emotions and say that it doesn't work. And it's not that the leads don't work, it's that people don't work.
Correct.
You know, it's not that the gym doesn't work. I have a gym membership for 5 years. It's not that the gym doesn't work, it's that I don't go to the gym and do the work. It's a people problem. It's not a lead problem. So yeah, interesting that you brought that up, Rami. I wonder about, as far as building the business, what have you found as far as that goes? Because you're now starting to build a team and get agents writing and whatnot. Like, what's your advice on that?
So my advice, guys, first and foremost, would be start building right away. And I mean that because you do not have to be the best producer in this business to build a team. You have no idea who first of all, needs this opportunity. And I mean, they need it. They need to pay their bills. They need to pay their mortgage. They have college tuition. They have kids. And right now, guys, as you can understand, the economy is struggling at this point in time. So first and foremost, expose yourself and others to the opportunity. Because if you're not exposing them, they'll never be able to see if this is going to be a good fit for them. Secondary, I would say that the reason why you don't have to be the best producer right away to build is because when you hire, if I have an agent and they bring somebody on board, I'm going to handhold that agent. I'm going to help them. So your upline guys should be guiding you to make sure that you understand that they're going to be by your side 10 out of 10 times. That no matter what, you can bring on everybody in the world and they're going to really help to make sure that, they get through the system, they understand how to do it. Because like Trey, as you know, you never know who you hire, that maybe they know somebody, that they know somebody, that they know somebody, and that person ends up blowing up the business and it really goes up. In the very beginning, I did not do that in the beginning. I wasn't, talking to my friends and family about it. I wasn't pushing the opportunity too much. I was kind of just posting a little bit on Instagram, not really, exposing the opportunity. So the one thing I would say is definitely, guys, get out there and expose it from day one, because you don't need to be the best producer. Let your upline handle that. Once you learn the business, you'll then be able to hire and teach your own agents and do the same thing. But it's a copycat industry. So if you took all of us in this office and you put all of us here and said, hey, say your script, say your in-home, say your phone script, we all sound exactly the same. There may be a couple word tracks differently, but primarily, guys, it's the best copycat wins. Secondary, I would say, when you're hiring people, guys, remember that you work with them. They don't work for you. You work with them. They're your business partner, which means you have to meet them where they're at. Wherever their needs are, you have to try your best to kind of make sure that you're filling that need and that you're meeting them where they're at, which means if somebody wants to cover their mortgage payment, make a couple extra families a month, and that's their goal. You don't need to, push them to $1,000 a week in leads, XYZ every single time. You say, okay, what do you guys need? What do you want? Let's see what we can do to make it happen. And don't do what I do. Don't talk at people, talk to people. So that was the main thing, Trey. I had a really difficult time, especially now when I'm talking to agents. I will tell them what to do, but I'm not really how do I put it? I'm not coaching them per se. I'm kind of saying, this is how you do it. If you don't do it, then I kind of hands off. And I think that that's not the best mentality. And I advise everybody that in the business, don't do that, right? Make sure that you're understanding people, talking to them, see what everyone needs, because we're all different people. Someone can take, a very direct approach. Somebody needs to be spoken to in between the lines. You may have to, give subliminal messages, and you may have to slowly chip away at that ice block to kind of open up the thing from within, because again, at the same time, everyone's different, and that's the main thing I've realized when building a business. Yeah.
So my advice with that is the person that says, hey, just shoot me straight. Just tell me straight up. Like, that's the last person you need to shoot straight and tell straight up. Like, you need to tiptoe around that one.
That's right.
You'll offend them real fast. You can just be honest and tell me, no, okay, that means I can't be honest and tell you straight up. Like, we got to work our way up to that. The direct approach with that person should be the last approach with that person. But I think what you were saying there makes a lot of sense. Is start with why. It's really easy to coach people when you understand why it is that they're doing what they're doing, and offer a solution when you understand what the problems are. And then the other thing is this takes time. If Rami hires me and I'm brand new and I'm trying to figure out how to become a good producer, that's the best time for me to start hiring, because I can leverage Rami. That's the best tool that I have. Like, I don't have to teach everybody everything. Not everybody expects me to teach them everything, but I can tell his story better than he could tell his story. I could build him up and then make him the expert. And so when he coaches people on selling life insurance and helping families, they'll actually listen to it. So that was my role when I started out. I did that with Andrew Taylor. He was a much, 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 much better producer than I was. And all I did was I found people that wanted to do it. And I said, hey, let's go do it and learn from Andrew. And so I brought a bunch of people back so they could learn how to do it from Andrew.
That's great.
So, well, this has been awesome. I think we have a time limit on how short we're supposed to keep it. We'll have to do a round 2 of this, Robbie.
Have to, of course.
For sure. But thanks for being on the SolidiTEA podcast. It was an honor getting to be the guest host this week. You guys make it a great week, and reach out if you need anything.